Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to Banter on Bikes, episode 6. I'm one of your hosts, Sof, and we should also have my host on, Zabs. Hey, Zabs.
Assalamu alaikum, bro.
Assalamu alaikum. How you doing? Yeah, alhamdulillah. All good. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Coming up to the last 10 days, Ramadan. Looking forward to getting a little bit more spiritual. I think the fasts have definitely got easier. What about you?
Yeah, I think pretty much the same. I'm starting to feel a bit tired now. I think because as you get through the sort of first 2/3, but like you say, last 10 days, right? So alhamdulillah.
Got to stay strong now.
It's gone quite quick.
Yeah.
So what's on the show today, Zabs? What are we talking about today?
Well, I mean, before we get on to what's on the show, I'm just gonna had a little. Well, it's related to what's going to be on the show today, but I was having a little reflection this morning. The reflection is when I stood on the scales and I saw my weight, and then I thought
was it a good reflection or bad reflection?
It was a decent reflection actually, because when I looked at it, I was like, subhanallah. I looked back and I was reflecting back on this year, and in this year I've managed to lose about 5 kgs from May last year, and when I think about, I mean, physically, I feel much better. It feels great. And in the last year as well, I've managed to increase my cycling by about 350%. So that's the volume increase. I mean, the only reason I know that in terms of precision is because of Strava.
Okay.
So it's not something, that's the only reason I know. So that will bring us on. Yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say, and Strava, just for our listeners who don't know, it's a fitness tracking app, so you can record all your sort of runs, rides, etc. Gives you a good sort of training log.
For sure. So then going on to the topic, that kind of brings us, I suppose, segues us nicely into the topic of today, of promoting healthy weight loss through diet and nutrition, but through the lens of cycling in specific, because obviously weight loss can be obtained different ways, different means, different vehicles using as a means of getting to that goal. But for us, it's going to be cycling focused, and how that can bring around change.
Hence the name of the show. Yeah.
For sure. So we've got a special guest on today, but I'm not sure if. Okay, cool. So luckily,
can you hear us?
Assalamu alaikum. Loud and clear. I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Very well.
Today we've got a local legend, Samad, from the local community, larger than life character, someone who we know who likes to really challenge themselves, up for any challenge, and someone who likes to bring maths as a solution to all his problems. And obviously, if you're looking for a tutoring company, then obviously he's your man.
I think Samad runs one.
Welcome.
I think the main thing we want you to cover, Samad, I guess, is you've been on this significant weight loss journey all year, and you've kind of partnered that with cycling. We know. You've seen some incredible gains, right? And if you don't mind us sort of sharing, I think you said something. You've lost like 15 kilos in the last, 7 or 8 months. So, mashallah, that's amazing. But I guess start by discussing, I guess, what kind of motivated you, how did you get into that, and and ultimately how did you achieve those gains?
I think first of all, lockdown number 1. I think when that happened, I think my weight went up like exponentially. I think I just I wasn't an active person anyway at that point, so that didn't help. So just being sort of at home and sort of minimal sort of activity level, sort of just commuting to work and stuff like that. And when that was taken away, and then sort of sitting at home and eating unhealthily, perhaps more often than we should, just resulted in putting on some rapid weight gain. And I was already big anyway, so that didn't help matters. So just came a point where a few months in, exactly. A few months into that, sort of June time, 2020. I was just looking at myself thinking, what is going on? My clothes were getting really tight. It was really bad. It was bad. I'd gone all the way. I'd exceeded 100 kilos on the scale, which is terrible. Yeah, exactly, right. So I got to 102 kilos, and at that point, I just sort of was like, you know what, I need to do something. And I'd had previous half-hearted plans of trying to get back into going to the gym and all that, and getting fit again like I once was. So that just made me just sort of draw a line and say, you know what, I have to do something. I'm not going to go out and buy another set of big clothes and all that kind of stuff. We might have to go back to the office soon. None of my office clothes fit. What is going to happen? I need to do something. And then I recently sort of reconnected with some of my good friends who started cycling with you guys. Okay. So, and they were like, come cycling with us. And I was like, cycling? Cycling. That just sounded so daunting at that point, because they were showing me their Strava stats, showing me how many miles they were doing. At that point, it was like the mileage was in the 20s. It was 20 miles, 25, 30s. And at that point, I thought, wow, how can you guys go and cycle 30 miles? I couldn't comprehend.
Have you cycled previously?
I've cycled previously, but nothing like that. The biggest cycle I'd done up until that point was 11 miles. And that was back in 2015. That was the furthest I'd ever done. And that was a big cycle. So
now you're at your heaviest point, right? So you're at your heaviest point.
Yeah.
You're looking at a cycling club as an option. And then you've just decided that, you know what, you're going to take a leap of faith effectively and start cycling.
Yeah. So, and at that point, I didn't even have a bike. So it was like, okay, so I need to get a bike and, commit to this. And then my good friend actually gave me his bike. He bought another bike and actually gave me his old one and was like, look.
That's a very good friend.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. It was like, look, here's a bike. Come and join us, just get on it. Just get on a bike, come out with us and join the group. The Green Stars group at the mosque, join them and start cycling. So I did. And I did that. And very quickly.
Sorry to interrupt, but what did you like about the group, or what helped you? You think with that?
So I think there's two things. So first thing I did was I actually got in touch with a nutritionist and had a nutrition plan set out for me. Right.
That's big.
And then so I did that. That was my first commitment to losing the weight and getting healthy. The second commitment was finding an activity, physical sort of sporting activity to go with that I can do in my own time and get that done. And then that's when this came into play, and it all kind of just came together at the right time. It all came together really. So then when I joined the group and went out for my first ride with you guys, it was with brother Rahat that was on with you guys last week. And he welcomed me into the group. As he does. We all know what Rahat's like. Definitely.
Some of that point that you mentioned, that just going back to the nutritionist element, right? So you said nutritionist, and then you wanted to have something to balance that with the physical sporting element, which is your cycling. I think you basically nailed on the head with those 2 points, right? Because that is basically the crux of how you resolve things. What I want to know is, what made you go to a nutritionist? Because that's not something that's
quite a big step. Most normal people don't do that, right?
Yeah, especially
they try and manage it themselves.
We don't even think about that. Yeah,
they try to follow a meal plan, but
So the reasoning behind that was I needed a sure solution to this problem. And it was like, I don't have the knowledge. I had to admit to myself, I don't immediately have the knowledge that I know is going to work for me. So I need some help. So I went to seek the help, got the help in that area. I know the exercise bit, I'm pretty confident I can do that bit. I can find my own way on that side of things, whether that's just going to the gym or going for a walk or run or weightlifting or anything. But with the nutrition is where it counts the most. It's what you're putting into your body and the calories that you're putting into your body versus the calories you're burning on a daily basis. And that is what's going to achieve weight loss.
Do they set you a program or a meal plan, or how did it work?
Not really as such. It was it was yes and no. So the meal plan was like, just eat foods that you like to eat. So the key thing here was to eat foods that you enjoy eating that are healthy. Okay, not digestive biscuits and things like that. But also not ruling those things out as well. So it was a case of not not depriving yourself of anything, but bearing in mind that if you do eat a quantity of something, it might just throw all your calories off for the day. So you need to basically be burning more calories than you eat, be in a calorie deficit. And that was the golden rule. And that has been my golden rule. And is to always not eat more calories than you're burning if you want to stay in a weight loss, in a fat burning state.
Just talk some of our listeners through that, because I think a lot of people, like you say, they don't really understand, because they've never had to, right? Calorie sort of deficit, inputs, output, etc. But just talk our listeners through some of that, because people, and I myself, I look at it, sometimes I struggle because you don't really know, or you can't quantify how much you're getting in versus what you're burning, right? So net you end up gaining. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I'm not
just before you do that, I just wanted to just mention that crucial point, because I think it's very important that when you said that, you said I didn't know the solution and I wanted someone to help me find that. You said this is why I turned to a nutritionist, and I think that's obviously this has been the month of Ramadan, and I think this is the point of it's the Islamic principle of asking the people who know. It's like a Quranic principle, right? And you kind of applied that beautifully, and I think that there's goodness in that. But so I just wanted to mention that before you kind of
well said.
Yeah.
No, definitely, totally agree. I mean, if you want to do something correctly, you need to find somebody who's learned in that field that can guide you, and otherwise you're going to be winging it all the way through, which is what I was doing, which didn't get me very far, So in regards to I'll just put a disclaimer. I'm not a nutritionist, so this is my experience of that I've had with a nutritionist and achieving a calorie deficit and achieving that in diet and with cycling. So it might be something that might work differently for different people. So my main program was effectively choosing a desired body weight that I wanted to be at. Right. So I started off at 102 kilos. Right. So I needed to choose and obviously because somebody might say, well, how do you know how much you want to weigh? Well, less than 102. So let's start with that. So I said to myself, you know what, let's make it 80 kilos. The average, if you've got, 80 kilos, probably a reasonable, healthy weight for a guy. So I went for 80 kilos and I realized that's a whole 22 kilo loss that I need to achieve to get there. So I managed to get down to 87.5 kilos, and that was over a course of 4 months. So
huge.
I started it sort of end last week of July. I remember it was Monday the 27th of July that I started it. And then on Boxing Day, I think was the last time I weighed myself in 2020, when I was sitting at 87.5 kilos. So I managed to keep the weight off all the way through to December. But I'd actually achieved the 14.5 kilo weight loss in 4 months. And that was maintained.
Were extremely disciplined and focused on what was being prescribed.
Yeah. So and I realized that, and I'd weigh myself once a week, every Monday, and stick to my calorie count that was set for the day. And I'd stick to it every single day. And there were some weeks where I didn't do any exercise. So the only exercise I was doing was cycling. And that was with you guys on a Sunday. And then we did the occasional one during the week. Me and Rahat would meet up and would do the occasional before work or in the evening, the late summer days. We'll do the odd cycle.
Rahat is the local community leader. We've had one previously. Just so they know. Yeah, carry on.
And so I actually found that sticking to my diet on a week where I didn't do any cycling, I still lost weight. I still lost weight in that week by weighing myself from the previous
Monday. If I can ask you a question, we just had a question just related to this from one of our listeners, but they said, what has motivated and kept you going? Because it's not easy to kind of set a target and hit it. So what helped you kind of keep going? Was it that seeing that kind of constant improvement? Was it?
Yeah, definitely. It was a combination of things. So in terms of the nutrition, so hitting the numbers every day of the nutrition, the motivation there was I was getting that from my nutritionist and speaking to him on a weekly basis, checking in every week. Yeah, how's your week been? Where what's your MyFitnessPal stats looking like this week? I'd log everything I've eaten. MyFitnessPal accountability. and I would send in my stats every Monday as well. So I'd weigh myself, send in my stats for the week, and say, yeah, 1 kilo down this week. Here's my stats, or no weight loss this week.
Did you have any weeks where you went up or you didn't hit the target? And
yeah. So I had a week, sort of about 4 weeks in, or something like that, 4 or 5 weeks in, where I'd lost weight consistently, because the weight loss is more dramatic when you first make this change in your healthy eating habits. It becomes a more dramatic sort of weight loss, and you're focused on it, and you're seeing that big result. I remember the first week I'd lost 2 kilos in 1 week, just by and I was like, wow, okay, I dropped below the 100, and I was like, milestone reached already. I've dropped below 100, and that spurred me on for the next 4 weeks. And in 5 weeks in, I got a bit complacent and thought, have some dessert, had a little bit of this and a little bit of that, after sticking to my diet. And then that threw my diet off that week, and my weight actually went up by 0.5 kilo instead of going down.
Yeah.
And I was like, and there was a moment there where I was like, what do I do? Do I, carry on? Do I carry on eating?
Samad? Let's just take.
Someone's calling in, I think, quite a listener.
Hello, or should I say salam?
Walaikum salam. You're live on Ramadan FM.
Am I live on air?
Yes, you are.
You are.
It's Andy McNeil, a Scottish Reaver from Wolverton in Milton Keynes.
Andy, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, I got a 2-part question, or maybe a 1-part question, depending on how this goes.
You say 1 pack or 1 part?
1 part.
The 2-part is a Scottish accent, which maybe is confusing you a little bit. Up here we talk a little bit different, but
why don't you shoot? Go for Andy. Shoot.
Preamble. Basically, I cycle roughly 50 miles a day. Me and my wife Shelley. How many? Yeah, she does about 25 to 50 miles. But the thing is, in Glasgow, they used to. I've got a bit of an hourglass figure. A bit like the Muslim Alex Salmond, if you will. I'm a bit top heavy, and people called me Big Bunda Andy in school. But one of the things I've struggled with is, how do you lose weight while cycling? All right, because for me, I'm cycling every day. I'm doing the calories, but how come I'm not losing the weight? It's on top of the fasting as well as a Muslim. What can I do? And the second part of that question is, how can we tackle body dysmorphia? The sort of worry that if I can't lose weight, what do I do? Do I accept it? So it's a bit of a deep question, lads.
That's very deep, Andy. That's very deep. I think for the first question, should we put Samad? Should we put you on the spot? That first question, you want to try taking that?
Yeah, sure. So how do you lose weight while cycling? Is that the question? Yeah.
So I cycle a lot anyway, and the thing is, I'm still pretty top heavy, if you will. I kind of lose the sort of top bits. Maybe it's too much haggis I'm eating. I don't know, but that's the main question, I guess.
So the key thing here is exactly what I did. So I was really big. I'm still big. I still got a bit more to go, which inshallah I'll do that this summer, straight after Ramadan. But what you need to do is trying to ensure that you're in a calorie deficit. So no matter how much cycling you do, unfortunately, if you match that with eating too many calories, you won't lose weight. So you need to do the physical activity and then achieve a calorie deficit and maintain that. And you need to be consistent with it for at least a week to begin with. And then you'll see a result. You'll see a small result. And then after the next week, you'll see another result. And if you manage to do that for 4 weeks on a trot, you'll see a big result, and then you'll spur you on to keep going. But you have to tackle it day by day and just achieve that calorie deficit day in, day out.
I think the other point
that's so helpful. So helpful. Hold on, Shelley, can you not fry the pakora tonight? All right.
The other thing I was going to add is accountability. I think. As Samad was saying, you need someone to keep you honest, Andy. Whether that's Shelley or someone else.
In terms of the second question about body dysmorphia. Sof, do you want to have a go at answering that one?
Yeah, that's a tricky one, Andy. I think obviously it's easy for everyone to say that you don't worry about it, don't try and focus on it, but it can be quite tricky. So I think the thing, and again, I'm not a qualified sort of psychologist or anything like that. I think try and sort of take pleasure in the simple things in life, right? And don't try and fixate too too much on it, if at all possible. And that's why I think it's important to, have balance. Obviously, have the cycling, have the diet. Occasionally you have a cheat day or whatever, right? But the key thing is, you try and make more good choices than bad choices, right? And I think that's what it comes down to.
I think that's great. I think from my perspective, it would be more a case of, as a Muslim, we should be inspired to kind of look after ourselves, look after our health, our well-being. Even from the prophetic sunnah, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even when he left this world, he had a flat stomach. His chest and stomach were in line, right? Just shows us something that we should be aiming for. But again, not to obsess over it. So I think that's the key. That it's always good to try and improve, but don't obsess over it, basically. Andy, thank you very much for your call.
I'm going to stick to the iron brew tonight then.
Yeah.
You're allowed the occasional cheat day, Andy. Thank you very much for your call, Andy. Take care.
So I wanted to just talk about one thing, which is obviously you hit a goal, right? You hit a target. You're happy. You've achieved what you aim to achieve initially, right? But sometimes they say that the goal is not the best way of looking at it, right? It's about building the habit, right? So when you build a good habit, that's something that's going to sustain, because a goal, it's short term. So how have you transitioned from hitting the goal to then building a successful habit?
Okay, so the habit comes from having a mindset change for me. So the mindset change, habits have been in this scenario has been about a mindset change and looking at food differently, and looking at exercise differently, and looking at also how I look and how I feel differently as well, and just sort of putting them all into the same basket and saying, right, okay, these are all interlinked at the moment, and they're all interlinked for me to achieve this goal of weight loss and becoming healthy. And I've kept that connection between all those three things. So that's my calorie count for the day, that's my calorie expenditure for the day, so my level of activity levels, and that's also what food I'm eating for the day. And those three things, I've kept them very interlinked, even like now. So the last 4 months, for example, it was winter, there was lockdown, there was no group riding. It was, you had to be really dedicated to cycling to get out in the cold. It was really needed all the right equipment, all that kind of stuff. It was very hard to sort of continue the cycling. So I kept the good habits of the eating and the nutrition and still logging my calories every day. Even though I know maybe one day I might eat a few more calories, I'm aware of it though. Of the awareness of eating. Yeah.
How's it impacted?
Cheat day, occasionally here or there, but the key thing is you keep yourself on balance, on track.
Yes, this is it. Yeah.
In terms of the cycling, how has this impacted your cycling? Because I think people want to know what performance benefits you might have derived from losing the weight. What is it meant for the cycling?
Yeah, I mean, the cycling, when I started off, I mean, it was hard. It was hard. It was hard in the sense that it was a little bit embarrassing. This really big fat guy on a bike. I thought all of that. I felt it all, but you know what? I've had to deal with it. But in reality of it, it probably wasn't that bad. It probably just felt worse to me because I was stepping out of my comfort zone. And I think that was key. You have to step out of your comfort zone, make a change, do something you haven't done in a while, and get it done. And the cycling,
climbing the hills.
Every week. So week in, week out, it was a few more miles. It was a little bit faster, or the same distance, but a little bit faster. More confident on the bike each week in, week out. I was getting more confident, to the point where I went from doing the beginners rides and then doing the Team C rides. And then eventually I was doing the Team B rides with the more experienced guys, bigger distance, faster pace. And I got to that point. And by the time I got to that point, I realized I'd shifted about 10 kilos of body weight or more, about 12 kilos of body weight at that point. So coupling the weight loss and the nutrition goals with this new exciting hobby that I've picked up, which was cycling with the crew, and making the gains there, they were both just sort of complementing each other. I'm making the gains physically, I'm making the gains nutritionally, and it was resulting in me getting smaller and me achieving the goal that I set out to achieve. So it was fantastic, and it was over a very short time as well.
To pick up on something you just said, Samad, was you said being like a larger person on a bike. Like some people might feel apprehensive, but how did you deal with that? Just conscious, actually, we've got about 2 minutes left now, so
Yeah. I mean, I dealt with that in the way that was like, you know what? Doesn't matter. It's got to be done. It has to be done. There's no two ways around this. I am where I am. I'm this big for a reason because I haven't been doing any of this stuff.
Looking good,
3 months of cycling, and it was gone. So
Are you doing any fasted rides at the moment?
I'm not. I did plan it, and I've not been able to get out on the bike. So I've just said, you know what? It's last 10 days now. I'm going to leave it now till after Eid, inshallah.
Makes sense.
That's it. Focus on the spiritual. And just in terms of, just quickly, is there some advice you could give in terms of the fueling strategy of, when you're riding a bike and staying within the calorie deficit, knowing that you want to overeat sometimes? How did you kind of manage that? Just in a very
I managed that by making sure that I stuck to my calories for that day, and I just distributed my calories differently for that day. Okay. So maybe I'd eat some of my calories before I went out for the ride, so that I wasn't tempted to eat croissants at the coffee shop afterwards with all the guys. So, and then drink plenty of water, and then sort of almost intermittently fast till dinner time. And I would not overeat on a workout day, and that was the best way to make the most of that calorie deficit for that day.
Perfect. So thank you very much for being on the show today, man.
Thank you so much.
Time has run out. So if you want to...
Thanks for having me.
Thanks very much again. And thanks again for our listeners. We'll be back again next week. Assalamu alaikum.
Pleasure having you on.
Assalamu alaikum.